In this training, I'm going to talk to you about how you can maximize your communication so that you can attract higher quality women. What we don't want is for you to have a limit on the kinds of women that you can attract because of how you communicate. There's other limits that take a lot longer to change. For example, like meeting girls because of status. So if you're a person of higher status, you're oftentimes going to attract maybe to some extent more higher quality women, not necessarily character-wise, of course, but higher quality in terms of how they look, higher quality in terms of maybe things they're involved in if you're higher status. But that's something that takes a lot of time to develop. Another thing that may take more time to develop is looks. You can't just change your looks only in one day. Some things maybe, but generally you can't do that. You need to work on yourself, work out in the gym, buy clothes and work on your wardrobe and dress better, grow out cool hair, facial hair, things like that, right? So what we don't want, though, is to have things that you can control immediately be things that limit you from attracting and creating relationships and finding intimacy with super amazing, really high-quality partners. We don't want that to be a limit. And for a lot of guys that I work with, I see that communication is one of the things that limits them. So by this, I mean there's women that they could be meeting that are super attractive, super cool, super amazing, that are right in their vicinity, that are right in the sphere of the circle that they're in, but they don't meet these kind of women simply because of how they're communicating. In this video, I'm going to give you 2 amazing tools that you can use to radically change this today without having to wait to go on this long journey and change it. And if you can apply these things, they're going to help you attract the kinds of women you want way easier so that there isn't a limit and you feel like there's a cap on the kinds of women that you're talking to because of how you're communicating. So we don't want it to be where it's like, oh, I fucked up in what I said, or I said the wrong thing and the girl didn't like me, or I feel like there's no room for error. We don't want to be there, okay? Before we go, I'll tell you who I am. My name is Tim, in case you don't know, and I am a men's lifestyle consultant, and I specialize in teaching dating, relationships, and communication skills, and I work with entrepreneurs and high-performing men all over the world. So let's go ahead and get into this. So number 1 is you want to learn how to maximize your ROI on each word. This is the most important principle, and every person that I work with, I start by teaching them this. Maximize the ROI on each of your words. Now, here's what I mean by ROI. There's something that we call return on investment. It's a business term, and a lot of people know this, but maybe you haven't heard of it before. ROI basically means return on investment. It means when you put something in, what are you going to get back from it? So if you invest money into a business project, as an example, what money will you get returned from it? If you invest your time in something, what will the return be? If you invest time working with someone, with a trainer, let's say a fitness trainer, what will the return be on your time and in your money? That's return on investment. You can invest time, you can invest money, you can invest attention, all these things you can invest. So when I say maximize the ROI on each word, what I mean is that when you communicate with women, you want to make it where every single word that you have, everything that you say to her, everything you communicate has impact. Because a lot of times as men, we don't interact with the world this way. We interact where we kind of throw shit out there and see what comes back, but it has very, very, very little impact, and you don't want this to happen. So what you want to do is maximize the ROI on each word, where every time you say something to a woman, anything you say, like whether it's your opener or you're in a conversation and you say something to move the conversation forward, where that statement you make has an impact on her and it actually does something for the interaction. You don't want it where your words have no meaning and have no impact. So how do you have a bigger ROI on each word? Number 1 is learning to deliver your words slowly. This is really, really important. A lot of times, the reason your words have minimal impact is because you rush through them. And I made a training about this in our private men's group, actually. The link to it's below if you want to join it. But I'll talk about it here as well. A lot of times when I work with clients, I'll see them deliver like a statement to a girl, like let's say something like, you're my type. The guy will say, hey, what's up? You're my type. Wanted to come over and say hi. That's what they say. Hey, what's up? I thought you were my type. I wanted to say hi. There's no space for the impact of those words to settle, actually. Words have more impact when you deliver them with space, when you deliver them slowly. Now, what's interesting is, when I teach relatively quickly. When I teach and go through these trainings, I talk relatively fast because I want to hit you with my words and I want to talk with more authority. But if you want your words to sort of have tension behind them, where the person has to really sit and process, and actually I do this sometimes when I teach as well, but if you want them to really sit and process and you want it to have impact sexually, there needs to be space for that impact to actually exist. It's very difficult for your words to have impact if there isn't any space behind them. So that's why when I say something like to a girl like, hey, you're my type, I'll frame it this way. Hey, you're absolutely my type. I think I want to get to know you. Do you see the space there? Now what happens is when you create that space, it gives room for her to sit within what you're delivering and within what you're offering, and allows her to invest in it. Super powerful stuff. So there needs to be space. Number 2 is start challenging her. Right? So part of delivering your words slowly is let there be space in your words, talk slowly, don't rush through it. And number 2 is challenge her. I do this all the time. When I talk to women, I challenge their beliefs and I challenge their ideas. When you challenge her beliefs and challenge her ideas, each of your words has more weight because it makes her think. What a lot of men do, and maybe you've caught yourself doing this, tell me if I'm right in the comments below, I'd love to know. What a lot of guys do is they'll interact with the girl and they'll say, like, hey, you're my type, you're attractive. The girl will say thank you, and then the guy will give her a bunch of information about him, or he'll ask a bunch of information about her, and that's it. But there's no challenge. Challenge basically means there's a certain standard that I have to fulfill if I'm going to win you, right? So what you want is for her to feel like there's a standard she has to meet if she's going to get you. This is what we call reversing the buyer-seller dynamic, because most guys come into interactions as the seller, and hey, I'm going to sell myself to you to try to get you, and they're not really the buyer, where they're saying, hey, I'm the person who's deciding if I want you or not, if I want to build something with you, if I'm attracted to you, if I want to create a relationship with you. So how do we reverse this dynamic? It's by challenging her, because a lot of times when you challenge her, she's going to have to measure up to that standard, or she won't be attracted to you. That'll happen as well. Sometimes, like, I have some guys that'll go out on our programs and they'll try to challenge the girl, and the girl will be like, I'm not going to answer that question, and the guy's like, damn it, the challenge didn't work. But it's because she doesn't respect you, she's not attracted to you. So the challenge only works if she's attracted to you and feels an incentive to respond to this challenge in a way where she's like, let me see if I can earn you, let me see if I can desire you, or if I can get your attention. Okay, so what would a challenge look like? For example, if I tell a girl, hey, I think you might be my type, and she says, okay, thank you, I'm going to challenge her answer. I'm going to say that's what your response is. That's all. That was pretty fucking lame. I thought you would say something a little more exciting. It makes me depressed. I came over here and I laid my heart down on the line for you, and you just responded with, oh, okay. All right. So, and I'm saying it as a joke, of course. Most girls would know that that's being ridiculously sarcastic. But me saying that, you hear the energy there, and you hear the way I'm delivering that, it's a challenge. So I presented her with something. She didn't give a response that I liked a lot, so I challenged it. Okay, so buyer versus seller dynamic, flipping that by learning how to challenge women. And it's not saying you be disrespectful. It's not saying you come at them aggressively, none of that. But it's when you get something that kind of irks you, or something that you're like, why did you say that? Challenge her. Why did you say that? Ask the question. Why did you say that? Okay, what's part 2? How do you improve your communication so that it's no longer a limiting factor when it comes to attracting quality women? Number 2, become a storyteller. This is a really big one. So a lot of times, we as humans tend to convey information. We tend to tell information through the lens of fact. So we say, this happened to me, and that was that. But one of the ways to make your words have more impact and have more ROI on your words, and in fact, this is a sales principle, is to actually tell stories. So instead of you sharing your values, let's pretend that something that you believe in, this is what we call your values, and in my coaching, we talk about this. So one of your values, let's say, is you believe in leadership as a man. You believe that you should set a course for yourself and say, hey, I'm going to go forward and do this thing. You should join me, okay? Leadership. And let's say you meet a girl and she's a bit challenging with that, and she's like, why should I go on a date with you? Let's say she says that. One way you could answer that, which would be through giving information only and not telling a story, would be, because I said so. You could say it like that, but that's kind of like corny. But one version is that, or you could say, because I think it would be a good idea. That's one. The other version is this. So when I've gotten this from girls, when in the past, this is what I've said, and you can use this if you'd like, but delivering it the way I do is probably going to be very difficult. But you can understand the principles and the energy behind it. Maybe I'd say something along the lines of, when I was younger, I used to always kind of wait for girls to open the door and tell me, oh, now's the time, like make the move, set up a date, whatever. But for a long time, I tried that. And what I found was it led to me connecting with a lot of really cool women that were actually very good character women. But because I didn't lead it and didn't make something happen, they just weren't very proactive, because I found a lot of the women I've met tend to not be very proactive. And they're really good women too, but they're not very proactive with things. So what I decided is when I find someone that I'm attracted to, someone that I like, that I want to connect with, I'm going to be proactive. And if they don't think it's a good vibe, and if they don't want to engage in meeting me in the future, then I'm completely fine letting it go. And if that's the case, then I won't connect with you. But the reason why I said let's hang out on Sunday is because I'm attracted to you, and I think that it would be a good vibe, and I'm not a child, so I'm saying let's go do this thing, and we'll see what happens, right? So the end was a little stupid, but I think you get the idea of what I mean. So I told a small story of where I was before when I was younger. My life was like this versus now, this is how I see the world. That's a story. So it's sharing a value that I have, something I believe in that explains the way I see the world, sharing that through a story. That's super powerful to do. The second part of becoming a storyteller is what we call speaking from within. It's called speaking from within. So instead of speaking through the surface being like, this is what's happening in the exact moment. Instead, what's the context and the feeling behind this surface level situation? So if I get a woman, like I said, who's being challenging, or someone who's kind of calling me out on something, instead of me directly handling the call out, I'll ask her maybe, where does that come from? You know, like 2 years ago, I dated someone who, do you see the story? All right, 2 years ago, I dated someone who XYZ. And I'll go into the verbiage of telling my story because it gives context into who I am, into what my values are as a person, and it allows her to understand me and connect with me on a level of impact, a level of respect, a level of trust that a lot of guys don't get to because they simply don't communicate this way, okay? So if you want to have more impact in your communication, in how you meet women, so it doesn't limit you anymore, and where instead your communication becomes an asset, here's what you do. Maximize the ROI on every single word that you say. Make sure that all of your words have more ROI so that every time you say something, there's a bigger impact, right? Return on investment on every single word. You do this by slowing down and learning to challenge her. Number 2, become a storyteller. Become a storyteller. Learn how to channel your value through stories instead of just information, and then learn how to speak from within. That will change everything for you, okay? I hope that this made sense. I'm sending you a bunch of blessings and a bunch of love. I want you to crush it this weekend or this week as you go out and socialize and build relationships with people in the world. Keep making money. Keep living your best life. I'm supporting you, and I love you. I will see you on the next training, my friend. Be blessed.